We currently have a new Central Bank of Nigeria governor, Mr. Yemi Cardoso. In addition to that, the current inflation rate is 29.9%, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. So the outcome of this meeting, we're making suggestions, we're making recommendations, and most analysts and economists are making suggestions concerning the MPC meeting. But the key point we're all after is the high inflation rate. And we are all suggesting that we increase the monetary policy rate to combat the high inflation rate in the economy. So on today's show, my guests and I will be making more suggestions as to the second day of the MPC meeting. So I'll be discussing with my guests today the second day of the Central Bank of Nigeria Monetary Policy Committee meeting. And I have two guests in the studio with me this morning. I have Mr. David Adonri. Mr. David Adonri is the Executive Chairman of High Cap Securities. He has a lot of years of experience in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and he's also a commodities and futures exchange trader. Welcome to the show, Mr. Adonri.
Thank you very much, Lovina.
Joining me in the studio is Mr. Alex Anyogu. Mr. Alex Anyogu is a chartered stockbroker, and he's also the head of the Diaspora Marketing FSL Securities Limited. Welcome to the show, Mr. Alex.
Thank you so much, Lovina.
Yes,
Thank you.
So like I mentioned earlier on, we're actually talking about the high inflation rate we have in Nigeria right now. And we know that the MPC meeting is designed to actually combat this. The stakeholders at this meeting, they're actually going to be talking about this. So we're going to be making our suggestions as to what we hope will be the outcome of this meeting at the end of the day. So today, Tuesday, is the second and hopefully the last day of the meeting. So I'll start with you, first of all, Mr. David. Now, do you think tightening the monetary policy rate will attract more foreign investment to the country? Yes, we know that it's been happening over a few years. We've been calling for more foreign investors to come into Nigeria. We know this issue of inflation has also been a hindrance to that effect. But do you think tightening the monetary policy rate will actually help to gather more foreign investment to our economy? Yes, Mr. David.
Thank you very much, Lovina. Yeah, when you tighten money supply, of course, that will increase the interest rate in the economy. And so when you have assets yielding higher rates, of course, it's capable of increasing foreign investors' participation in the market. But beyond just the attraction of a high interest rate, when the foreign exchange is troubled, then the gains from the high exchange rate may be lost by the depreciating local currency. So, it's a step in that direction, but is not a very, very important step, because when you tighten money supply, of course, you are embarking on a contractionary monetary policy, and the objective is usually to rein in inflation and also cool down overheated markets in the economy. You know, as we are aware right now, inflation is trending at over 29.9%. But beyond that, we have principal markets like the capital market and the foreign exchange market that are seriously overheated, inundated with a lot of excess liquidity. So it does make some sense to tighten monetary policy. But remember that what confronts this economy now, there's a dilemma really, because if you tighten monetary policy, which we have seen in the recent past, a lot of hikes have occurred on the interest rate with a view to reining inflation. But so far, inflation has defied all those contractionary monetary policies, indicating, therefore, that the kind of inflation that we have in Nigeria may not be that driven essentially by demand factors, where monetary policies are important. They can play a role because monetary policies are short-term demand management policies. So I call it a dilemma because studies have shown that the inflation that we're experiencing in Nigeria now is essentially driven by supply gap, So that cost push, using the technical term, is cost push inflation rather than demand pull inflation. So therefore, it's not surprising that the contractionary monetary policy that has persisted for all this while has not been able to deal with the critical issues of not just only inflation, but other macroeconomic indicators, have suffered in the economy for quite a while. So the MPC is faced with a dilemma now. They are faced, with a dilemma that now we have an inflation that is cost push inflation, where demand management policies may not be able to show any effectiveness. Well, it will be very interesting to see the decision they will take today in terms of interest rate, So the cost push we know is as a result of sudden change in the price of petroleum products, together with the insecurity that has escalated the cost of domestic inputs, So in terms of reining in inflation, it will be very interesting to see how the MPC navigates that issue. But maybe when we discuss further, we'll look at all the other possibilities.
Oh, I still want to get Mr. Alex's thoughts on this matter. Yes, Mr. Alex, are you of the same opinion concerning foreign direct investments into the economy, and if tightening our monetary policy rates will actually help us with this?
Like Prof has alluded to so many factors that is driving our current situations and the dilemma that is being faced by MPC towards resolving the issues of this high inflation that has been hitting us. And like he also alluded, if I want to put facts to figures, if we look at last year, coming into last year, we see inflation in January at 21.04, 21.22%, and we ended the year with 28.92%. And here in January this year, we are seeing over 29%. This is a rate we have not seen in a very long time. In fact, the last time we saw a rate near to 28% was in 2005. So if you look at these figures, you start to make sense of where we are and how the dilemma that Prof is trying to make reference to. Okay, this is the inflation rate. Okay, MPC2 has also been on the increase. Though since Cardoso came in September last year, he has tried to use OMO to try and control the supply of money in the economy. And we've looked at how he's been trying to mop up cash and trying to mop up money from the economy. But has that really solved the problem? We keep seeing interest rates keep going up. Okay, and if we now want to start looking at the MPC rate, okay, in January last year, we saw what they came up with. We saw their rates. We saw a rate in March. We saw the rate in May. Okay, even in May when they tried to be hawkish, and we saw how all those things has lingered on. We've seen an MPC rate that grew from 15.5, reference to January last year, to where we are now at 18.75. Okay, So within the space of this 1 year where we are, we've looked at the rate of inflation. Inflation has grown by almost 800 basis points, even when we have tried to adjust this rate by almost 300 basis points. So has it been able to cushion the effect? No. So, and if we now want to come back to where we are and be specific to your questions, we are looking at foreign direct investment. Okay. What are we interested in? That's what the economy should be looking at now. Like Prof has mentioned, fine, if you increase rates, you encourage investors to bring in their money. But when then what is it? What is the effect of our exchange rates and what is it doing now? So these are things that foreign investors also, they do the analysis, they look at. And we've seen the rate of inflows and how it has been dwindling down in the past few periods that we are under review. Like Prof said, when we keep discussing further, there are other measures, there are other, other inflows that we can, put strength on to try to see. I've looked at data analysis. If you compare the data between just diaspora inflow and these FDIs, even if we break the FDIs down and look at portfolio investments and check what we have, diaspora inflow, we look at where we should be making a lot of effort, where government should be putting effort, what we want inside and what will drive our economy. And vis-a-vis, our dollar exchange rate and what we are going through there.
Okay, still on you, Mr. Alex. Yes, what other measures would you actually recommend as to how we can actually solve this situation? Yes, we know the federal government has been calling for foreign investors to come into the country to invest. We've been seeing that since he resumed last year, and we know that it hasn't been very easy. We've also seen we've had some foreign companies in the pharmacy sector who have also packed up because of the economic policies that recently came up with this new administration. So, but what solutions would you actually proffer to that? What measures? Because you said that there are some other areas that need to be really invested into, that we're not really looking at the right sectors to invest in. So what other areas do you think those would be?
Okay, thank you very much. The government of today is doing something, like I mentioned. Cardoso this is his first MPC, and he has not folded his hand. And if I want to just be specific about monetary policy, he has been trying to use open market operations to see how to curb and stabilize price and then stabilize inflation in the country. Okay, has it worked so far? Monetary policies are on one hand, physical policies are also on the other hand. So MPC is going to come, MPCs are going to look at the things surrounding monetary policies, and they are going to help the effect of the open market operations that Cardoso has been trying to use all this while. And Cardoso has been very specific that his policies are going to be inflation targetary policies. So we basically expect what we are going to see at the end of today after their meeting. What other measures? There are several other measures, like I've mentioned, monetary policies in one hand, fiscal policies are in the other hand. I'm very happy today when I heard the news that Tinubu's administration is trying to do something about MDAs, trying to streamline, multiple departments and multiple parastatals so that cost of governance will start going down, because we need to do something on the extravagant spending of the government sector. Yes. There's a lot of areas that we need to put in place, okay? Prof has mentioned the issue of security. We need to increase our productivity, look at productivity. We need to, go to farming. So both physical, both monetary, a lot of things has to come together for us to, locally, start leveraging up what the potentials we have here. And then when foreign investors look and they see that grounds are enough green, and they will move in. And my concentration, like I said, I am head of diasporas in FSD Securities, and we've been doing a lot of work now trying to see, because we've looked at data. Data has speak to us, and we see where our foreign direct investment will come from. You know, if you look at countries like India, they've been there for a very long time. You see huge amount of diaspora's fund coming into India. You know, we are doing better than Egypt some few years back. Now Egypt has surpassed us. So we saw $20 billion last year. What is our budget? You understand? We've seen diaspora remittance as high as $24 billion some few years back. So these are areas, so many areas, and you know, people in diasporas, they think Nigeria. They always think Nigeria. I speak with them. I'm in touch with a lot of associations in diasporas, and you know, they've been trying so hard to see how they can come in and partner with investments in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Alex. But before we actually continue, I just wanted to ask, does being head of diaspora require this unique color of your jacket? Because I just noticed it with the logo on it. Could you shed more light on this, please?
That's a very difficult question, because if I have somebody like Prof sitting beside me and I'm wearing the jacket, you know, this is an NSC jacket.
Okay.
We call ourselves NGS now since we have been mutualized.
Yes.
But I think that I'll give Prof the honor to do justice to my jacket. Thank you so much.
Okay. So Mr. David, I'll go to you. Yes, concerning this unique color of jacket and the logo he also has on. Yes, he went on to say that it's for Nigerian Stock Exchange professionals, chartered stockbrokers. So can you shed more light on it, please?
Okay, thank you, Lovina. You can see how the ceremonial jacket fits him, but we actually call it a robe in the market. And you can see the color is royal. So it's a robe that we wear when we have special ceremonies. And we actually were at the NGX premises, and we rushed down from there to participate in this discussion program. We have a very special ceremony there that will start at 12 noon, but it's a sad one in that we are all severely bereaved by the loss of just immediate past president of the Nigerian exchange group, Otumba Abimbola Ogubanjo, who lost his life in the fatal accident that occurred when himself, Herbert, and his family members were traveling from, I think, California to Nevada. Yes. May their souls rest in peace. Yes. So that is why Alex is wearing the ceremonial jacket.
Okay. So there's a short ceremony for them.
Yeah, there's a ceremony.
Okay, now I understand better, actually. And yes, like you rightfully said, may their souls rest in peace. Okay, thank you for shedding more light as to the reason you have this very unique color of jacket on today. Okay, so still on our, so we know, I totally understand what you are saying, Mr. Alex. And yes, you also mentioned that we are not investing in key investment sectors. Yes, we know that we are supposed to actually look into increasing our local production. We're also supposed to actually patronize more of our local goods, actually, which will help to actually circulate the naira more and could also curb this high inflation we have in the country right now. But I know that in the past, African countries have also had their own fair share of inflation in the economy. Countries like Kenya, countries like Zambia. So, for example, I would also go back to our interest rates. Now, when the inflation in Kenya was quite high, they actually ensured that their interest rate was above this inflation, up to 10% above the inflation to combat the inflation. And the same thing applied in Zambia. So, Prof, do you really think that these countries, having survived this inflation situation, Nigeria can borrow a leaf from them by also increasing their own inflation rates to be above what we currently have at 29.9%? Do you really think this is going to be sustainable?
Okay, thank you very much. You know, economic structures are different from country to country. and the circumstances that economies face, they are completely different from one another. Consequently, if an economy is troubled or there is a malaise, the remedies to restabilize and normalize economies are probably not just the same or cast in stone. So it will be very difficult to emulate the economic measures that have been taken in other jurisdictions to normalize their economies. So it becomes imperative for the managers of the economy to undertake in-depth studies and analysis of the root causes of the imbalance that may have thrown the economy into disarray. And I think while we appreciate the steps taken in those other countries to rein in inflation, they are galloping inflation. The causes may not be quite the same as we have here. So the remedies may be different. The good thing now, if I bring this discussion back to the meeting of MPC that will announce their decisions later today, is that MPC has not sat for the past 7 months.
Yes.
Although...
yeah, the last meeting was July 2023, yes.
Yeah. So, but statutorily, I understand they are only mandated to hold 4 meetings in a year. Okay. So they are not really out of shape. Having said that, they have had enough time, especially because the Central Bank of Nigeria, which is the monetary authority, has the pleasure of having well-qualified and experienced in-house researchers with capacity to study the economy and identify the factors that have propelled or continue to propel this galloping inflation in the country. And I therefore believe that they, who are the staff at CBN, may have come up with proper advice to the MPC members that will shape the decisions that they will reach today. But from information available in public domain, it's not far-fetched for us to finger some causes or factors that may have propelled the galloping inflation in the country and so many other imbalances that have assaulted the economy, because we are focusing principally on inflation, but the task of monetary policy actually goes beyond inflation, you know, because the monetary policy, there are sets of actions that ought to be formulated to stimulate growth, a non-inflationary growth in the economy, and also to preserve the value of the currency, being the medium of exchange and store of value. So in Nigeria, from publicly available information, we can trace the propelling factors to pervasive insecurity that has crippled the rural economy and chased farmers away from farmlands, you know. So that has orchestrated food insecurity and food, in fact, the contribution of food inflation to the headline inflation is so high that is probably the most dominant factor, okay? So now that insecurity that has damaged the rural economy is not only affecting food security, but also inputs, because you know, manufacturing companies obtain inputs for their production, you know, from the rural areas, okay? And added to that, we have the sudden change in the price of
PMS.
Of
yes.
PMS.
Yes, you mentioned that earlier on. Yes.
So that has actually escalated the rate of inflation, because this is an economy that is principally still at the primitive level, and so is driven by mechanical activities that require PMS. And so when you take up the price of a factor changes dramatically, it spreads across. And then secondly, the exchange rate. You know, in a bid to unify the exchange rate and the deregulation of the foreign exchange market, we have seen the massive depreciation of the naira. So that is also a factor that underpins the galloping inflation we have seen. Therefore, what MPC will be looking at, considering the available monetary policy tools that they have with which to normalize the economy, they will probably be hamstrung in terms of relying principally on exchange rate hike. Again, I pity them, because if you look at the other instrument that they have at their disposal, which is adjusting bank reserves, the reserves are already so high. You can imagine the cash reserve ratio at 32.5% is already high. I remember in those days in this country when CRR was below 5%. You know, you
that
remember?
Must have been a very long time ago.
Very long time ago, you know. And then also seeing liquidity ratio at 30%, you know. So there's a limit to which you can use the indirect method of interest rate adjustment to deal with the imbalances in the economy. So that is why what Alex has said, that the use of open market operation, OMO, by the CBN, yes, appears to be the most successful tool from studies in Nigeria, is being the most successful tool in curbing galloping inflation. But it comes at a cost. So that is why it is an instrument of last resort. You know, Cardoso has been relying on it, but it has a cost, because if you are running a contractionary monetary policy and you have to sell securities to the investing public, you are going to redeem those securities at a very high price.
So I'm still talking with my guest, Dr. David, and he's shedding more light as to how we know that the Central Bank of Nigeria governor came up with the open market operation to actually combat this inflation situation in the economy, but it will actually cause the capital market to be overheated, and he was going to shed more light on that. But also talking about the six assets that President Tinubu mentioned concerning monetary policy in the country. Yes, Dr. David.
Okay, thank you very much, Lovina. Perhaps I would state that monetary policies essentially are short-term demand management policies that the monetary authority usually formulate to establish short-term stability to the economy. Essentially, the real economy is the fiscal economy, which is made up of production and trade. And so money supply is just an enabler, you know, to propel the fiscal economy, production and trade to flourish. Therefore, a lot of emphasis that people are placing on the MPC may actually be misplaced, because the real job of tackling the galloping inflation, it falls on the shoulders of the fiscal authority. So the role of monetary authority is secondary and supportive. Now, while the MPC is meeting, I said they've had a long time to reflect on the impact of the previous policies and also to analyze the factors underpinning the instability in the economy. Let me state that, of course, their decisions will be short-term to give room for fiscal policy to come in and close the supply gap, which is actually the bane of the economy. Now, President Tinubu in his renewed hope agenda, had actually set 6 monetary policy goals to be achieved by his administration. And I think MPC in their deliberation today, or even what they started yesterday, may have also looked at those 6 monetary policy goals that Mr. President has set for them. So I will just reel them out in case they are watching this program so that they can quickly dwell on them and start reflecting and planning on how to translate Mr. President's dream into reality. Number 1, he said he will review the harsh, ill-fated currency redesign swap policy of the previous administration. Yes. I think that has already been done. It was done by Shonubi. And then number 2, he said he will reduce interest rates in the economy. But we are talking of a hiking interest rate now. Yes, so as to match up with inflation rate and real returns in the economy. Yes. But the president's view is directly opposite. He wants to reduce interest rates, you know. And then number 3, Mr. President also wants to settle the outstanding payments to foreign investors whose funds have been trapped in the Nigerian economy, and therefore remove the exchange controls that have inhibited this repatriation of funds, you know. And then number 4, Mr. President spoke about making credit available in the economy, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's something that has
credit
been
availability.
Yes, credit availability.
But yes. This may run counter, because for you to make credit available in the economy, it means you have to run essentially an expansionary monetary policy. But over time, we have put this economy in a contractionary monetary policy, although that effort has always been thwarted by fiscal policy that has always been expansionary, you know. But that notwithstanding, MPC members should take note of that. So how many have I reeled out now?
Yes, you've reeled out 4.
I've reeled out 4. Yes. Okay. Then reining in inflation.
Yes.
I know that is what is engaging their attention now.
And inflation right now is on the increase at 29.9%. So yeah. I would leave it for the experts to continue. Please
yes, so it's at 29%. And then I think finally is the unification of the Naira. Of course, that has been accomplished. Mr. President has already deregulated the foreign exchange market and unified the Naira. But that has inflicted collateral damage on the productive economy. Just like you mentioned a while ago, it has seriously damaged the balance sheets of a lot of companies, including Nestle, Nigerian breweries, Cadbury, and so on and so forth, due to high finance costs. So MPC will need to reflect on all this. And I think if they work on this, then they would have their sight on the ball for the future and eventually come up with policies that will put Mr. President's dream on the path to reality, and will also normalize this economy and make this economy to be internally self-sustaining and regenerating. But fiscal policy is actually the overriding factor. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. Please. Yes, Mr. Alex, please. Your thoughts on that? Yes. Dr. David rather just mentioned how important that fiscal policy is actually the key factor to enable this economy to grow with improving on our local production. But yes, he also mentioned the president's six assets concerning when he was talking about how he's going to improve on our monetary policy. So, are you also of the same opinion on this? And okay, yes, just before you answer that, I also like to know that if you were part of this committee, now what steps would you take to actually stabilize the Naira in addition to that? So let's start up with concerning the physical assets, then before we move on to the stabilizing the Naira.
Okay, on the physical asset side, like Prof mentioned, we all know, we are all aware what's happening now in the country.
Yes.
I don't need to start repeating a lot of things because of time and giving you figures because we don't have time. Prof has mentioned a whole lot of them, and we are facing the crisis. We are all there. We are feeling the hate. You mentioned Kenya. The issues that happened in Kenya and when their inflation was rising was equally similar to what we have here in Nigeria. In Kenya, it was productivity issue. It was an issue of corruption. Those are the key driven factors, like we have in Nigeria, rising price of energy, exchange rate. So those are the things that we are in Kenya, and you mentioned how they were able to look at Kenya. But you've heard Prof mention the president's agenda, and if president is looking at creating credits and looking at lowering interest rates, yes. And CBN is being hawkish, trying to stabilize inflation by increasing interest rates. You now see polls, in different directions. Yes. And like Prof has also mentioned, fiscal policies which you've mentioned. I think like I alluded before, we know where we are all now. Nigerians are choked. The issues of fuel price and exchange rate. Our economy is driven, like he mentioned, this is cost pull inflections. And I see the government trying to do, here and there. I will not use the word policy somersault because they are all, government is also trying to, nip this in the bud. They've done a lot of things. You see EFCC chasing BDC. You see OMO, the auctions that they just did, and they mopped up about 2.5 trillion from the economy. So you see a lot of things here and there that government is just trying to do. But this is a complex problem, and there's no quick fix solution to this complex problem. You understand? So I think first thing first, government as a whole, but MPC, everybody in government should sit down and try to understand this problem. It's a complex problem. Yes. And you can't solve a problem that you don't have full understanding of that problem. So there should be an analytical, a concise, well-structured, you have to structure the problem in a way that you now track the problem. It becomes clear. You have an understanding of the problem. That's what you come first. And when that is done, then government now will be able to see the options to go from understanding these problems. How do we now solve the problems? But there are a few things I have to mention because, and I think they are all equally part of the problem. And like I said, the government made an announcement this morning trying to, save costs because when you are trying to, curb prices, by firebrand, prices are a function of demand and supply. Yes. So the market will still, find its level. So extravagant spending from government should be taken care of, like I've mentioned, understanding the problem, and then solving the problem. Extravagant spending of the government should have a clear vision of where we are going to. Mm-hmm. And government should be honest to the citizens and then sell whatever solutions they have so that the citizens can have a buy-in into that. And then when they start, profiling these solutions, I think if we have a buy-in of the populace, and then we can move forward. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. Alex. I really do. Yes, your comments and your suggestions have been well noted. Yes, so this morning I was joined by Dr. David Adonri, who is the Executive Vice Chairman of High Cap Securities, and Mr. Alex Anyogu, who is a certified stockbroker and also a dealing clerk of Nigerian Stock Exchange, and he's the head of the diaspora marketing for FSL Securities Limited. Like, my two guests offered suggestions on how we can actually combat this inflation situation in the economy and recommendations concerning what will be discussed at the Monetary Policy Committee meeting going on at the CBN headquarters this morning. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, so just before we round up the show, they shared their insights, they gave their opinions, and it's well appreciated. So just before we round up the show, I will share the stock market, the official rates this morning, where the Naira is actually selling. The Naira is actually selling the dollar at 1,499 Naira to $1 as the official rate as of today, 27th February. And it's the Naira is also selling £1 sterling at 1,931 Naira. And the Euro is actually selling for 1,656 Naira. While in the parallel markets, our unofficial rates for today, 27th February, the Naira is actually selling at 1,530 Naira for $1. And the pound sterling is 2,000 Naira in the parallel markets for $1. And in the Euro, it's 1,700 Naira for $1. So thank you so much for joining me this morning on Market Insight. That was our package this morning as I discussed with my guests on day 2 of the Central Bank of Nigeria Monetary Policy Committee meeting taking place at the headquarters of CBN. And my guests, Dr. David Adonri and Mr. Alex Anyogu, were able to share their insights with us this morning. Thank you so much. I remain your host, Lovina Emma. Do stay tuned for our continuous programming on Souq News.